Next, I'd like to just walk around the chip and explain all the different pieces to it. And I'm sort of going to go in the order that a pixel coming in from the camera would visit all the different pieces. So up there in the top left, you can see the camera serial interface. We can ingest 2.5 billion pixels per second, which is more than enough to cover all the sensors that we know about. We have an on-chip network that distributes data from the memory system. So the pixels would travel across the network to the memory controllers on the right and left edges of the chip. We use industry standard LPDDR4 memory running at 4,266 gigabits per second, which gives us a peak bandwidth of 68 gigabytes a second, which is a pretty healthy bandwidth. But again, this is not like ridiculous. So we're sort of trying to stay in the comfortable sweet spot for cost reasons. The image signal processor has a 24-bit internal pipeline that allows us to take full advantage of the HDR sensors that we have around the car. It does advanced tone mapping, which helps to bring out details and shadows. And then it has advanced noise reduction, which just improves the overall quality of the images that we're using in the neural network. The neural network accelerator itself, there's 2 of them on the chip. They each have 32 megabytes of SRAM to hold temporary results and minimize the amount of data that we have to transmit on and off the chip, which helps reduce power. Each array has a 96 by 96 multiply add array with in-place accumulation, which allows us to do almost 10,000 multiply adds per cycle. There's dedicated ReLU hardware, dedicated pooling hardware, and each of these deliver each one delivers 36 trillion operations per second, and they operate at 2 gigahertz. The 2 of them together on a die deliver 72 trillion operations a second. So we exceeded our goal of 50 teraops by a fair bit. There's also a video encoder. We encode video and use it in a variety of places in the car, including the backup camera display. There's optionally a user feature for dash cam and also for clip logging data to the cloud, which Stuart and Andre will talk about more later. There's a GPU on the chip. It's modest performance. It has support for both 32 and 16-bit floating point. And then we have 12 A72 64-bit CPUs for general purpose processing. They operate at 2.2 gigahertz, and this represents about 2.5 times the performance available in the current solution. There's a safety system that contains 2 CPUs that operate in lockstep. This system is the final arbiter of whether it's safe to actually drive the actuators in the car. So this is where the 2 plans come together, and we decide whether it's safe or not to move forward. And lastly, there's a safety system, and basically the job of the safety system is to ensure that this chip only runs software that's been cryptographically signed by Tesla. If it's not been signed by Tesla, then the chip does not operate. Now, I've told you a lot of different performance numbers, and I thought it'd be helpful maybe to put it into perspective a little bit. So throughout this talk, I'm going to talk about a neural network from our narrow camera. It uses 35 billion operations, 35 gigaops. And if we used all 12 CPUs to process that network, we could do 1.5 frames per second, which is super slow, not nearly adequate to drive the car. If we use the 600 gigaflop GPU, the same network, we'd get 17 frames per second, which is still not good enough to drive the car with 8 cameras. The neural network accelerators on the chip can deliver 2,100 frames per second. And you can see from the scaling as we moved along that the amount of computing in the CPU and GPU are basically insignificant to what's available in the neural network accelerator. It really is night and day.